and welcome back to My Star-Crossed Lover with Callen and Xiomara. I'm happy to have you here as you listen to this historical romance novel with me. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
I'm hoping what I said could make you change your mind, though it doesn't really matter when my hands are tied. I'm trying to walk across the bridges that I've burned. My only way to you is gone, the tide has turned. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat.
Callen. I watched her eyes glimmer with hope that I had lost a long time ago when I had entered the arena for the first time. It was there again, and although I knew that she would never understand what I went through, a big part of me hoped she would be able to free me from this life. But knowing who she was to me, I stepped away from her and distanced myself. My lady, you mock me with your words. Distance yourself and do not exchange words with me. I am not of your status to be sharing such conversations with you. You will leave me with no head if you continue to seek me out. Her smile faded as she moved away from me. Pity, Callen. I thought you were more of a man. I chuckled as I walked around and away from her toward where King Willem was waiting for me. When I arrived, Cavish was kneeling on the ground and I joined him. The batch of slaves will be arriving soon. I need you both to start training these men for the arena. I have lost much coin in the past 2 months, due to the lack of good strong gladiators, and I am weak in pocket. Do it, and see that reward should be given to you handsomely. Fail, and you shall see the end of my whip to your flesh, he said. Yes, my lord, we both uttered in unison. Tomorrow, Prince Hamish is arriving, and I know that daughter of mine will be out and about causing a ruckus. I saw that she took a liking to Ileana. Have her washed and bathed and returned to her side, so she will at least have a sound mind to stay still. Yes, my lord. I will send someone else to tend to the gladiators in her absence. What did the princess wish to speak to you about? Cavish asked as we were walking back to ourselves. 2 guards were walking ahead of us, and 2 were behind. Too much eyes and ears present here, Cavish. Once you and I seek solitude together, I shall bring forth words she has shared with me. Cavish smiled as we entered the dungeon area that led to the darkened cells where we were kept. Ileana came out from the back door wearing a dress I'd never seen before, and it lit up her face. Ileana, you look a sight, I said. She blushed and smiled. It is a gift from the princess. It suits you well. Word from King Willem's is that you will return to her side, and someone will be sent to tend to gladiators in your absence. She nodded. I shall return to her side then. Sadly, I will not be able to gaze upon your face. She touched my arm lightly and left as Cavish and I rounded the corner to where his cell was. The guards opened it, and we both walked in as we sat on the hard ground. Ileana has a fond heart for you, Callen. Why do you not seek her hand in more than just friendship? Cavish asked. I ran a hand through my dark locks. Why would I hurt her soul when I know that I will not be forever for her? Laughing, Cavish replied, You speak as if you are an oracle, knowing the future, and that you two do not belong as one. As far as I know, Ileana is the best woman for you. She is pure of heart and speaks with gentle tone. Does it not satisfy you? Satisfaction has little to do with it. I do not wish to harm her when the love she gives me is genuine, and the one I hand out is only of kindness. Yet you have wrapped your legs around her on occasion of cold nights. A mistake I will not repeat again. It was true. After she left that day from my cell, I came to the recognition that if I were to set her free, I would no longer share her body as that of a lover. It was wrong of me to use her that way. Many of the men here would be happy to hear, for they would now share her body without worrying of hurting you. Did you count among them? I asked as I got up to return to my cell. When I arrived, Ileana was there waiting for me with a package in her hand. I let the guards open the door, and once inside, she handed it to me. I immediately took it, but she reached out to hold onto my wrist. I know that you hold nothing of me in your heart, but please know that no matter where I go in this world, you are all I think about. This was what I have kept for years since I have been brought to this ludus. It is now time to return them to you, as I am sent to serve another. She let my wrist go, and I opened up the small bundle, and inside were strips of fabrics, a wooden sword, and a tip of an arrow covered in dry blood. I fingered through the items, and then I shot up my head, staring at her in shock. These were things that belonged to me. Nodding, she replied, "Yes. The fabric fell from your pant leg when you were injured in the first fight in the arena. The wooden sword was yours that you made by hand to practice when you first were brought here to this ludus. And the arrow, that was taken from your back when I tended to your wounds. They were all a part of you. I kept them because I had hoped that one day I would be the one to write an eternity with you." Her eyes filled with tears. "But now it seems that our fate is to be rewritten, where you will go another way and I on my own. I fear I may not have the heart to properly bid you farewell, so I shall gift you all of these as a way to say the final word." I set the items aside, and I took her into my arms, holding her against my body, feeling her curves she'd let me know. "Ileana, forgive me. I have wronged you. I took your virtue, and yet I cannot protect you as my woman." She held my waist, clutching more like, and then a small sob escaped from her throat. "I have dreamed of holding you like this 1,000 times, Callen, and each time I dreamt I would hear you say, 'Ileana, be my woman.' I would wake up with a smile planted across my face, my heart etched with contentment, and my world filled with warmth. But when the day breaks and I see you training with the gladiators, you barely look at me, and when you do, it is without emotions. And I tell myself, the dream is better to hold on to than the reality that splits my world apart." I pulled away and wiped her tears. "Go, serve the princess well, and may your body cloak kind and pretty ornaments as you always should have been gifted." She backed away from me and sniffed. "I leave my heart with you, Callen. I shall now watch you from the tower and hold my breath as the sword is swung above you. No longer can I tend to your wounds, so when you see sword aimed at you, raise your shield." I nodded. She threw her arms around me one more time and removed myself from me as the guards closed the cell, leaving me alone. Xiomara. Being prepared to meet your husband-to-be was a duty I never thought I would be doing. Tiana and Ileana were both putting the final touches to my outfit and hair, proving that they were well gifted with their hands as the servants announced that Hamish had arrived. "If I end up making a fool of myself, do you believe my father would dissolve the engagement?" I asked. "My lady, honestly, Lord Hamish is not a bad choice for a husband. He shall love you and carry you to his castle to make you a beautiful bride and mother." I groaned and felt my heart flutter with disdain. The thought of lying with him has my insides crawling with maggots. I stood up and smoothed down the front of my purple gown. "Here we go." I walked out of the chamber and down the stairs as the two girls followed behind me. The rows of servants lined up with presents, and my parents were standing by the front, elegantly dressed and ready to greet their new son-in-law. Behind the servants were the gladiators, all wearing black pants and naked from the chest up. I caught a glimpse of Callen, and I felt my body respond in a way that had me shaking. I stopped short of my parents, and the front main doors opened. In walked Hamish, a tall, broad-shouldered man with short brown hair and extremely icy blue eyes. He wore red armor and carried a sword by his side as he marched in. "King William!" he cried out in a deep voice. "What a kind greeting you deliver me! And where is that wife of mine?" As he mentioned this, my mother gestured for me to move forward, and when I did, he turned toward me and dropped my father's hand as he came walking toward me. You are more beautiful than memory recalls. My heart is yours, my lady, and you shall be mine, he whispered. He bent down to kiss me, and the action surprised me where I simply turned my lips away from him. Before I knew it, his hand slapped me across my cheek, and I stumbled backward where I fell into Ileana's arms. The entire crowd who had welcomed him exhaled a concerned gasp. My cheek went numb, and tears came to my eyes as I felt as if the wind had been knocked out of me. "My lord!" my mother cried. "What on earth has she done to deserve such treatment?" Suddenly he grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet where I felt as if the socket would come out of my shoulder. I let out a painful cry as tears streamed down my cheeks. "Do not turn away from me. Don't you ever turn your face away from me," he cried. "I understand, my lord," I wailed lightly as he shoved me backward where Ileana caught me again. "Now," he said as he turned to my father, "let us speak on terms of agreement." My father, without saying a single word, led the way to his private study while my mother came to me and touched my arm. "Darling, are you all right?" she asked. I shoved her hands away. "This is the man you want me to marry. I hope you are proud of your selection, Mother." As I turned to walk away, my eyes caught the concerned gaze of Callen staring at me from where he stood. "My lady, here," Tiana said as she placed an herb-filled sachet against my cheek. I could feel the skin swelling, and when I moved my lips about, I could feel the stretching my flesh that felt as if it was being split apart. "Dumb brute," I whispered as I shoved at my eyes, for the tears kept coming. "I cannot believe this is the man I am going to wed. How can my father make such arrangements to a wicked man as Hamish?" "Do you have a choice to dissolve this matter?" Ileana asked. Shaking my head, I replied, "No. If I were to, I would lose my head and be marked as treason. What can I do except bow and obey?" "But the treatment he has given you, and on a first meet," Tiana cried. "Even slaves treat their women better." "Even animals treat their mates better," Aliana cried. I felt my eyes sting with fresh tears, and I lowered my gaze as the door to my chamber opened, and my mother entered. "Leave us," she ordered. Both the women bowed and left as my mother took the warm cloth from Tiana and came to me. She took one look at my swelling cheek, and I could see that she was feeling guilty for having selected him as my groom. "You should not have turned away from him." Shocked, I stood up and moved away from her as my heart sank from her words. "You choose such a phrase to speak to me at this time." "I did not choose him as my husband. You did, Mother. And look at what you selected. A man whose hand has played a part in the swelling of your daughter's flesh. Does that make you proud?" She stood up and tossed the towel on the bed. "Do not speak to me as if I am an imbecile. The favors your father had to call upon to get an arrangement were enough. Remove such wicked thoughts from your mind. Learn your place, and never turn from him again, or else you will feel much more of his hand against your flesh." I sobbed. "Do you love me?" "What is love? A weak emotion that cripples you to the core. Remove it from your mind and train your thought to follow him in every way possible. It will help you to find contentment in your life. Forget to do so, and you will spend it in regret. Mark my words." Callen. The moment his hand went against her flesh, I wanted to run to her and beat his head in. But I knew I would only put her into a deeper crime against her own father had I done it. I could only stand and watch as the man who was to be her husband striked at her as if she was simply a piece of cloth to be used. As a gladiator, the sword and fist was used against the opponent without holding back, but never against a woman whose flesh was as gentle as Xiomara's. My worry of her bothered me deeply, and I had a concern of her whereabouts. "Callen!" I turned at the sound of Eliana's voice, and I rushed over as she carried in a pitcher of water for the gladiators. "Tell me," I said. "She is healing, but words of despair fall from her lips. If she is to go against her father's wishes and refuse marriage, execution will fall on her." A poor image of a man, the man selected to be her groom. "Are you staying with her tonight?" "Yes." "Good. Keep her safe." Ileana nodded and left as Cavish joined me with a sword in hand. He was getting ready to train the new recruits, and his eyes lit up when he saw my sour mood. "I have never seen you react this way before regarding the mistreatment of a woman," he said. "That is because you have not witnessed me having been present at the mistreatment of one before. The blow he struck against her would have bruised her for weeks." "I agree. It was hard enough to send her stumbling back. The man of his size against her would be enough to crumble anyone." He took a deep breath and offered me the sword he held. "Come. The king has word for you regarding new recruits." I took the sword from him and set it down, walking to where the king and Hamish sat talking. The king looked up when I appeared, and a smile came across his face. "Hamish, meet our champion, Callen. Never has he fallen on grounds to his knees when against any opponent." Hamish smirked. "Is that so? I shall have to test him against one of mine sometime." "I gladly welcome it," I sneered. Hamish walked to me, and then he crossed his arms, cocking his head to one side. "My king, instead of my man, would you mind if I dueled with him?" King William's face paled, but he recovered quickly. "Lord Hamish, if that is your wish, let it be so. What would you like to duel with? And the terms?" Smiling, Hamish replied, "If I win, this slave will receive 10 lashes and kneel before me." "And if you were absent of champion?" I asked. "Champion will be mine to claim, slave. Strike it from your mind as you will walk absent of it." I wanted to wipe the smirk off his face as he walked to the clearing in the field where we used for training. Cavish reached out to touch my arm. "Do not win, Callen. He will silence you if you let him lose face." I ignored Cavish as I walked to join Hamish on the field. He removed his sword, and one of the practice swords were tossed to my feet. I picked it up as Hamish gave me a smile. "Slave, your smile will be removed from your face today. No one has bested me just yet." "There's a first for everything in life," I replied. He roared and came at me with full force, and I ducked, swinging my sword and used the handle to jam it into his back. He groaned with pain and swung, slicing part of my upper arm, drawing blood. "Lord Hamish," the king shouted, "blood must be absent on the field today. Duel as friendly as possible." Laughing, Hamish replied, "Where is the fun in that purpose, my king?" "No, blood must be drawn. If he joins the gods in the afterlife, I shall pay for a new gladiator for you. It is time to test his name of a champion today." I found the king's face wretched with frustration, but he didn't answer. For once I thanked him for allowing me advantage as I turned to Hamish and swung. This time, instead of the handle, I used the blade and marked him just as he did me. He looked up at me from the wound in his arm, and his eyes pierced into mine with hate. "You wound me," he whispered. "As did you." "I shall teach you a lesson today, slave." And he charged forward, swinging his sword at me. The emotion he felt clouded his vision, and I took control over him, ducking, slicing, and dancing around him until I had drawn more blood on his arms, and he fell to his knees. My last final swing made him lose his sword, and as he sat there on the ground looking at me, I placed my blade by his neck. He sneered and whipped up a handful of dirt into my eyes. As I turned and shifted from the gravel that blinded me, he took that moment to pull a dagger from his pocket, and I heard Cavish call out my name. I swung my head, half blinded, a second too late, and the dagger jammed into my shoulder blade as I dropped to the ground. The uppercut I managed to strike at him sent him stumbling over, and I yanked out the dagger just as Cavish came running to me. Laughing, Hamish said, "You pathetic slave. Dare you to hold champion on your lips? 10 lashes for the one who kneels before me." Pain shot through me as I felt the warm trickle of blood gush out of my room. Cavish was stripped away from me, his voice calling my name, as the guards pulled me to my feet. They brought me to the 2 poles and chained my hands in each corner, leaving me spread eagle standing. "I shall enjoy the sight of your blood," Hamish said as he took the whip into his hand. The first lash hit me, and I gritted my teeth as I looked up at the sky. Xiomara. The night sky was beginning to lay a dark cloak over the universe when my feet touched the gravel on the training field. Still hanging on the chains was Callen, half asleep from the beating and wound, as his breathing was slightly singing along the wind. Ileana and Tiana both were trailing behind me as I walked to where he was hung. I reached out a hand and touched him lightly on his arm. "Callen," I whispered. "Callen, can you hear me?" His eyes opened halfway, and he made a deep sound from his throat. Remove yourself before eyes catch you. Do not make demands of me when you are nearing death, gladiator. I turned to Ileana. Hurry, give me the tonic. She handed me the small drink, and I lifted it to his lips. Drink. It will numb your pain. Hold on, and tomorrow I shall plead to my father to release you. I heard a mumble of words that I could not understand from him as his eyes closed. My lady, hurry, Tiana cried. The moment I walked into the dining hall where Lord Hamish was sitting, I felt my stomach turn. The man was drinking and feasting as if this was his own home. The manner that was absent drove me wild with hate, and I could not stand the fact that I was about to become his wife. He looked up, and a smile appeared on his lips as he leaned back in his chair. Xiomara, come give me company for the night, he called out. Wait for me by the hole, I said to both Ileana and Tiana. I walked to join him and pulled out a chair to sit down. My lord, dinner seems to be of your taste. A champion's feast, he said with a grin. I bested your father's champion today. Did you happen to witness such a glorious win? No, I am afraid I was not permitted to join such a duel, unless it was pocketed gain from my father. Hamish's grin disappeared, and he leaned forward. What words do you speak of? That what I have done was against competition rules? That I am not a champion in this ludus? Smiling, I replied, My lord, did you hear the applause from the crowd? His eyes turned dark. There were none, for there was no crowd. It was not even a duel at all, my lord, but a game of ego besting ego. You claim to have won. You must have a high ego, then. He stood up so fast that his chair toppled over and grabbed my arm, yanking me up. The pain sent me shrieking as he slammed me against the wall. Do you believe that just because you are the dear princess in this ludus, that hands will not taint your flesh and draw your blood? You best think again, my lady, for I fear nothing. If you are going to stand beside me as my wife, you shall learn that I like to decorate my woman with the emotions I feel on her flesh. Tears filled my eyes as I let out a heavy breath. What words did you lie to my father to make him give me to you? Laughing, he replied, Do you really want to know? Ask how heavy his pockets are, and you shall know. You are not cheap, so I expect a performance between the sheets. He laughed and then shoved me to the ground where my knees slammed into the hard tile. I felt my skin break as I gasped while he simply walked to the table and grabbed the wine. He turned to glance at me once, and then left as Tiana and Ileana came rushing to help me up. My lady, you must speak to the king, Tiana said as she held on to me as we began walking to my chamber. What for? As Lord Hamish said, my father's pockets are heavy with his coin. He would rather keep his coin than keep me. Callen. I woke to the sun's heat on my face and felt the ache in my arms. The pain from the wound was festering with pus, and I could feel the skin on my back open as I moved to stand. Cavish was the first I saw coming out with a new gladiator I did not recognize. Callen, hold on, mate, Cavish said as one of the guards came to unchain me. Cavish caught me and slipped my arm around his neck, as did the other gladiator. I was brought to my cell, and as I sat down, I felt my legs shaking as I tried to control my breathing. Get the medic, Cavish said. The other gladiator took off in search as I let out the last strength I held onto and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke again, it was to the soft touch of hands across my wound. Beside me was a young girl I had not seen before, and when she saw I had woken, she dropped the towel and ran out of the room. A moment later, Cavish and the other gladiator arrived with a smile. Am I glad to see your ugly face, Cavish said as he smiled and came to sit down. Pain must be hell today. I will survive. I looked to the other man, a smaller build than both of us, but same height with dark hair. And you are? I'm Damon, one of the new recruits. I have the honor of being trained by Cavish. Smiling, I replied, A good master. And I shall hope to train with you as soon as you are well on your feet, he said with a grin. The cell door opened and Ileana walked in carrying a basket of herbs. Callen, my ladyship wishes me to bring this to you, she said. I sat up and remembered that she was there to visit me. Thank her for the numbing tonic. I would do that. She turned to go when I called out her name. I watched as her face told the truth about her ladyship. If you were asking about her well-being, Lord Hamish took a beating to her when she announced that champion you hold still the name. He is absent of that title, and her knees and flesh saw pain and blood. I sat up and anger filled me, and the king allows such treatment. The king's lips are silent, Callen. His pockets are heavily lined with Lord Hamish's coin, so he speaks none. What a leech, Cavish said. Go on, Eliana. Go on and keep a watchful eye out. She nodded and left as Cavish took the items from the basket. The princess has a soft spot for you, Callen. Look what she prepares for you and none for us, Cavish said. Well, I am the one bleeding and you are well in health, I joked. I was put on rest and slept most of the time, letting my wounds heal, and I did not train. Lord Hamish had been to the training field, beating and severely injuring 2 other gladiators for show. The king had said little, and I was near breaking point. Ileana visited every now and then, bringing with her some items from the princess. Word had been spreading around that the wedding was being prepared, and that she would soon be wed to Hamish. She was far too kind for that man, and I knew he would break her spirit and take away the light in her eyes. On the 2nd week of healing, I finally walked out to the training field and was welcomed by the gladiators who had missed my presence. Damon came to greet me and sat with me as we watched the men train with each other. I have heard tall tales of you, Damon said as he turned to look at me. The men, they speak of you with the tale of a champion, and even the gods are fearful of you. Laughing, I replied, I bleed and break, Damon. My body carries wounds and scars from the sword of gladiators past. If I were as tall as they claim me to be, death should not be a worry on my mind. What words of wisdom do you have for me, Callen? I turned to him and patted his shoulder. Keep your shield up and never lose your sword. The moment that happens is the second death calls you home on a chariot. Gladiators! King William's voice rang through the wind, and we stood up as he came to the railing and looked down upon us. The competition is upon us in just a mere few days. The Senate has released the names of the gladiators who will fight for the honor of this ludus. Finally, Cavish said as he joined us, I should hope to hear my name. Damon! The moment we heard that, we turned to find the young gladiator's face paled. Cavish! Then King William paused for a moment before he shouted, And Callen! The loud applause came through the crowd as the gladiators came to shake our hands. I turned to find Damon still standing without moving. Damon, I said as he jerked his head toward me, what fear controls your mind? He shrugged and then shook his head. I was hoping to grace the sand and become a gladiator just like you. But now that my name is being shouted among the wind, the fear of death itself is what keeps me from smiling. Laughing, I replied, Fear not, brother. The fear will control and seize you if you let it. Instead, look to the sky and hope to go down in glory and honor, and the rest will fall into place. As I said this, I looked up and Xiomara made her way to stand by the railing. Her gentle smile was casted toward me, and Damon nudged me. Are you soft for the princess? He asked. Affections are never given to a person of her status. It would end with the 2 of us meeting death at the hand of the king. Merely a friendly gaze from a woman whose heart is kind, I said. When I looked up again, she had disappeared, and in her place stood Hamish, who was glaring down at me with dark eyes. The man was like a plague, and yet he would be the one who would gain access to this ludus and the rest of the things the king held dear. His daughter, his title, his life. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 3 will be released soon.
I'm hoping what I said could make you change your mind, though it doesn't really matter when my hands are tied. I'm trying to walk across the bridges that I've burned. My only way to you is gone, the tide has turned. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat. got to look beyond and see the other side. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat. Now that's an understatement. To walk alone, I guess it's my repayment. Please give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your